Hey, lunch break.
Welcome to lunch break. Grab that drink, grab a snack, grab whatever you like, and get ready to join us for some good conversation.
We got a lot of new things going on, Justin.
Yes.
We got my friend Kirk Hessler here with us today.
I'm excited to get to know him a little better.
Yeah, we're supposed to introduce ourselves.
We're making some changes here.
Yeah, we are. Our producer, Mike Harvey, is telling us that. So I'm Tom Touchstone. And
I'm Justin Greer. You can reach me at jgreer@vbf.org if you want to email me, talk, ask a question. Anyway, that's the best way to reach me.
Yeah, Pastor Tom at vbf.org. And our show there again is questions from our audience. That's why we're here.
Yes. So and we have a Facebook page now too. So if you're watching from the VBF site, definitely go and like us on the Lunch Break Podcast Facebook page. So please check it out. We'll put it in the link below so you guys can find it a little easier. But definitely support us on that. We need your help. Get those likes up. We want to be able to share this with the masses.
Yeah. But a lot of new changes here for our studio audience. Want to welcome everybody here. We've got some screens up, a lot of things going on. Just keep up with that, and you're going to be able to see a lot of things.
Yes. So
we actually have some merch coming out, Justin.
Yes, I'm so excited. There's a logo, there's a shirt coming out. You guys are going to want to see this.
Yeah, you can put it up there. It's going to be devoid of mine and Justin's name and special guest.
Yeah.
But it's got a pretty cool logo, courtesy of LaDavia Harvey. I think she's...
okay. That's who get the credits. I was giving all the credit to Mike.
Well, Mike will take the credit. But,
He'll gladly take it. But we got a lot of changes coming from you guys. Thank you. We know we have a few that are faithful to the Lunch Break Podcast, so we're excited. We know you're always excited to meet our guest, and I think we can jump in with what's the question? What's the question this week?
I was pulling it up, and the question is really coming in from last week. Our guest was Steve Anderson.
Great show.
And it was a great show. And Steve talked about how he went to work for his dad and how that was a complex relationship. It struck me, because every time his dad would introduce him to somebody, he would say, "This is a plumber, and yes, he can fire you." And he introduced him to the carpenter. He said, "Yes, he can fire you." And he said, "I'm going to introduce this guy." And Steve said, "Well, Dad, I guess he can fire me too." And he said he could. He goes, "Just because you're the boss's son doesn't mean you're going to get any special privileges."
Exactly.
That kind of thing. So, and I think the question is coming in: how do you manage relationships that come into your life that may be a little more difficult than others? How do you manage those, and how do you make them in a kind of a business atmosphere?
Got you.
In a relationship.
Okay.
And so I was talking during our production meeting the other day that I had several bosses at my job at Sunroll. And I was at a meeting one day, and it was executive level meeting. And I had the chairman of the board look at me, and he wanted me to take care of an issue that was a problem within the ag industry. It was called the hidden pickle. What would happen is customers would order a certain size of Valencia oranges, and if we didn't have them, we would ship them anyways. And by the time they got to the customer's location, they're wrong, and they would call us and say they're wrong. And it's like, well, we'll make you a deal. So we wanted to shut that door and say we only want to give customers what they ordered, what they wanted, which makes sense. It was just trying to sell what was on hand, and it was just a way. The minute it ended up on the East Coast, most people took it and took the price break. So he told me at the meeting, he says, "Tom, look at me and no one else around this table." Now, my immediate boss, which was the CFO, I knew I could feel her looking at me. Her name was Jo Horning. Jo's passed away, and a dear lady in my life. And as I was looking at him, his name was Howard Margulis, big businessman. And I said, "Yes, I can do that." The minute I said that, I heard an ashtray get shoved from a table, and it said about 20 people. And this ashtray was coming at me, and I didn't look until it got close to me, and I stopped it like this. So I caught it before it actually hit me in the stomach, but it was shoved from her at the other end of the table.
Gotcha.
So it was something that after the meeting, I knew she was going to talk to me. So when she called me in the office, she was a lovely lady. And she started out by, "Tom, do you like your job?" I go, "I do." you like working for me here? And I go, yeah. And so she said, don't ever do that again. And I was like, well, Joe, that's great. But Howard Margulis told me to look at him and nobody else at the table. And I had to answer him honestly. So it was a real complex relationship, and I loved everybody at the table, and even Mr. Margulis.
Yeah.
but it was complex, because I did love my job. I did like working for her, but at that moment I had to address him. And I think as you have to have complex relationships, I think there's a kind of a hierarchy in those relationships. Children, if you're out there, like it or not, your parents are part of that hierarchy. I noticed the difference in my children. I'm blessed to have my daughter Taylor here today. She's in studio. But when they were younger, I was kind of more in charge. But when she moved to go to college, there was more distance involved. And now she's out of college and grad school, and so now I'm in what we would call more of a coaching role with her. She'll say, Dad, what do you think?
Exactly.
It's not, Dad, what do I have to do? It's, Dad, what do you think? So I think every relationships have that. My wife and I have a great relationship. I mean, we don't make a decision without talking to either one of us.
I have a couple examples. The first one I got was just because the father and son relationship of Steve Anderson's dynamic. In his, I thought about, not in the workplace, but growing up, me and my dad had just this rough relationship, because I have an older brother. A lot of people don't know. I have an older brother who still is very successful. He's very successful. He has a master's in biology. He was a sports star, broke almost every running BCHS
There was a shadow
record.
there, right?
Yes, he broke Cal records for returning footballs. He was my brother was the big deal. And then he goes on to be a principal of a college and marries a doctor who delivers babies. I'm telling you, it's the next level of he was perfect.
Pressure's on.
Yes, I don't brag. He gets no brag right now. I'm just fine. I love my brother. I looked up to him my whole life, right? But me and my dad had this dynamic when I was coming up. I was a wild one, and my dad had first son, and then he had me, and I was going off my rocker. So me and him would just always clash because of that.
Did you ever hear, why can't you be more like your brother?
Yeah, this is what your brother did. He got straight A's. I'm like, well, that was him. Guess what? And but always in sports, I would catch myself trying to over exceed because I wanted my dad's approval. And then as I got older, me and his dynamic started changing because of spirituality, because I found Christ, and he started seeing me find my lane in that, and I finally stopped chasing who my brother was. I'm like, wait, God made me to be something. That's why I was so crazy in the beginning, and it's crazy to see me and my dad's dynamic shift. To where now I'm like, as proud as he is of my brother for the success he has, he's just as proud as me for my success spiritually in overcoming everything I went through, because he knows my struggles. And now we just have a whole different dynamic to our relationship. But as to the work world, to answer that question, you just dealt with it. You helped me the other day with it. So
last night.
Yes, last night. So VBS is around. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. It's Vacation Bible
amazing.
School for the kids. And with VBS, I know, and it's cool because I'm in like a mentoring role of this VBS. So I'm teaching the younger guys how to deal with the back end side.
I taught you how to do it about 10 years ago.
Yes. It's so crazy to see this dynamic changing. And I know the parent emails that are going to come. You could throw the perfect VBS, kids can get saved. You're going to get emails about how much of a heathen you are and how you messed up somehow. So an email comes in about a parent not liking one of the songs we play. And of course, I'm like, all right, I'm about to go to war with this person because they don't know. We done saved kids here and there and this and that. And I go, Pastor Tom at this point. I needed Pastor Tom, and I was like, hey, well, how do I handle this? And he just gave me so much wisdom. And still to this day, my dynamic is to go to my elders and ask them, like, in the workplace, how do I deal with this situation? Why? Because they've dealt with it before. And it's funny to see, I'm asking you, and then the younger guys under me are asking me, and I'm like, yeah, this is how you do it because Pastor Tom just told me. So that's how I deal with the tough relationships and tough relationships with parents and ministry. Is I go to my elders who have dealt with it before, any of my mentors who have dealt with difficult situations before, and I ask their advice.
Getting wisdom. I've been blessed. Of course, I've said my daughter Taylor's in the audience today, and she's very successful in high school tennis. And my daughter Tessa came up, and it's interesting. She was very successful, but when Taylor went on to play college tennis, my daughter Tessa says, I don't want to do that, and I'm going to go a different path. And so, you have to embrace the difference of kids employees, maybe in bosses. I had 2 bosses that I had to respond to, but there was a hierarchy there also.
Yes.
So those are the things that I think is very crucial. And as our audience is out there, the great thing about it, when you work through things, I mean, it's like Justin, talking to Justin, sometimes, and I said this from the pulpit last week, the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. I tell people all the time, if you want to be blessed, be a peacemaker. And I think we all have that opportunity all the time. Kirk, jump in on this one right off the bat with your experience on, dealing with bosses or relationships that might get complex.
Well, I'll start off actually with my dad. You both started off that way, so I'm going to do that too.
For sure.
Some of the things that I learned, and my dad and I had a good relationship. It was somewhat stressed. There was a lot of stress going on in the family. It was very dysfunctional, and so we had a lot of other issues to deal with. My dad did a number of jobs during his life, and one of them was that he was a painting contractor. Who would have thought my dad would be a painting contractor? But one day he became a painting contractor, and he needed helpers. So he hired my brother and I. Remember,
I love that.
My dad, he said, okay, if you go out to Porterville with me, and we were living in the Antelope Valley at the time. It was summer, right in the middle of summer. It must have been 100, 110 degrees out every day that we were out there. We were painting the outside of a house.
Like it would be here today.
Now.
Yeah,
Yes,
he handed me a scraper and said, you see that fascia board on there? You see that ladder? I want you up there and I want you scraping. But I'll pay you $20 a day. Woo, man, I'll tell you what.
Big bucks.
That was back in the early 70s, and that was big bucks.
70s, yes.
Yeah,
Good
I was
money.
like, freshman. No, not even that. I was probably in 8th grade whenever
Pretty
that
sure
happened.
it's illegal nowadays.
With your kids, maybe not. Justin.
Well, I tell you, but he told me a couple of things that I'll never forget. My dad had a thing about being late, and he was a Teamster.
Gotcha.
And Teamster to the bone. I mean, we're talking.
That's my dad too, a trucker.
Teamster, yeah. And so you're never late. So as I got in my high school years, and even a little bit after that, I would be late at times because I was focused on me and not about my dad. So my dad would want me there at a certain time to do something, and I'd be like 10, 15, 20 minutes late, maybe longer. And one day my dad had it with me. And so he said, Kirk, he said, you care more about your time than you care about my time. My time is valuable to me just like your time is valuable to you. And you're focusing on you. You need to consider my time. My time is important. So whenever we agree upon a time to be somewhere, you need to be there. Not just here, but at work and everywhere you go. Always be on time. And the other thing that he said is that whatever you do, make sure you do with excellence. Amen. And he said, make sure you do it right the first time. Do it right the first time. It'll save you a lot of time in the future. Those are 2 things I never forgot to this day.
That's a dad wisdom. Right?
Yeah, it is.
Dad wisdom, that's right.
My dad told me one time, do it right the first time because you haven't got time to do it the second time.
That's right.
And I always remember that. So, and I think with the things that you're talking about, Kurt, are actually biblical. Consider other people more important than yourself.
Yeah.
And do your work towards God, not for men.
And my dad was not coming from a biblical perspective, but it is very biblical, absolutely.
But Kurt, isn't that true that as you work around people, the things that we see written in the Bible are applicable to all of us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's doable.
That's right.
Well, Kirk is a vice president at Citizens Bank, and he happens to be our church's banker.
Citizens Business Bank.
Citizens Business
don't
Bank.
forget that business. That's important. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so it is. So there again, I hope that answers some of your questions out there about complicated relationships and doing the right thing in those complicated relationships.
There's something else I want to add too, is that there was a season when my wife and I owned a business, and it was out in Taft.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we owned a board shop, skateboards.
Oh, really?
And that sort of thing. Yeah, we built a skate park out there back in the late 90s. And my wife
did?
and I, well, I didn't, but the city of Taft did.
Okay.
They put about $500,000 into a skate park. So our kids who were in the high school age, they said, Dad, Mom, you need to think about opening up a board shop. Like, what's a board shop? You need to, all these kids, all our friends, they're going to need to buy skateboard decks and grip tape and clothes and shoes and all this stuff. And there's no place out there to do that. And this is before the internet really came on board. So So we thought, that's not a bad idea. So they said, don't tell anybody. We got to do this. We got to do this. So they were very much involved in us opening up a board shop out there.
Awesome. Including them young.
Very ambitious, too. Yeah. That's crazy.
So that was while I was working at the bank, and my wife basically ran it, and we called it Immortal Board Shop. Our son named it.
All right.
And it was kind of like a family business that we had. And one of the neat things, and also one of the biggest challenges, is hiring our kids.
Yes,
they were involved in all three of our kids. Whenever our son and daughter got married, there was a season where their spouses were working in the business as well. So we had like five family members working in the business for basically my wife and me. And then we loved it, but it was hard because we also had other employees, and then sorting all of that out became a difficult thing because we wanted to be fair to everybody.
Yeah.
And not take
favoritism
to our kids versus anybody else, nor did we want to be too strict on them more than anybody else. So it was a difficult thing to juggle at the time.
I tell you, the pandemic, I think, brought families back into that. I know when both my girls came home for the pandemic, they were both working, but working remotely. So my wife and I were working remotely. So the house, it was interesting dynamics when everybody was working their jobs from different rooms in the house. Internet speed, everything. Who's using the internet, downloading, uploading, everything was, you never thought of those things.
Yeah.
Yep, little problems that the pandemic presents. Like you learn a whole bunch of new issues.
I started realizing how much I had quicker download than I had upload.
Yep. Yeah.
We had to increase that.
A lot of people upgraded internet during the COVID season.
Amen to that.
It never made sense until then. So
okay. Well, so now that we've hopefully we answered your question correctly. I hope you guys listen and try to formulate a question from the rest of lunch break today as we get into Kirk's story. We want to ask you the first question off the bat. I feel like you kind of gave us a bonus one with the board story.
Yeah.
But it's entitled "What's New." We like to know something new about you that even some of your viewers that are close to you might not even know about yourself. There's Seth.
Yeah.
Seth got up from the audience just to push that button, you guys. He is very serious about that little sound right there. So give him some appreciation. But what's something that people may not know about you? Other than you have a cool ringtone right there.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't.
He's a banker.
It's all good. We're live.
I'm sure Hi, Heidi.
I'm sure you get calls constantly. But what is that thing that people may not know about you? Last week we had a Kiss fan on.
Yes.
That was pretty interesting.
Well, something that a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm somewhat of an introvert in certain ways, and it's shyness. And whenever I was growing up, like I said, we had somewhat of a dysfunctional family. My mom and dad were divorced whenever I was 8 years old. So we moved a lot. We moved sometimes a couple times a year. My mom was raising my brother and I, and those were difficult times. And in that, because we moved so much, I had kind of a low, my self-confidence was way down. I didn't have a lot of friends. I'd make friends and then we'd move somewhere else, and that just kept going on and on. And it was really tough growing up. And so I was really shy. But for some reason, whenever I got into high school, I thought, what I need to do is I need to run for a class office. I wanted to do that.
Really?
Yeah, and I kind of broke out of my shyness a little bit because of sports in junior high, because I was pretty good at some sports.
Which sports?
Football.
I love that.
And we played flag football, and I loved it. I just loved it. And then I loved to wrestle, and I loved baseball and all of that. So I was a pretty good athlete, and it kind of helped me with my confidence level.
It does.
So I thought in high school, I'm gonna run for an office. And I never had spoken to that many people before in my life, and I was really afraid to speak in public. So I got out there, and I had a speech prepared, and I was talking to the ASB, and I looked at them, and I said, "Vote for me, please," and I ran off the stage.
Oh, no.
Yes, I just ran off the stage, and everybody laughed.
Class.
Did you win?
Yeah.
No way, I didn't win. No, it might have worked.
The shock value might do it.
No, it didn't work. But it told me something about myself, that I need to learn how to speak in public.
Ooh.
That was a desire for me to overcome that that shyness that I had, and I didn't really. I really started working on that whenever I was toward my latter high school years and early into college, and I got involved in Youth for Christ. And I know that we're going to talk about that.
Oh, talk about it now.
Go into it.
They really helped me a great deal with public speaking because I was really afraid. I remember the first meetings that I had, a bunch of kids sitting there, and I was just like so nervous. But the more I did it, the easier it got.
Yes.
To a point now where, I mean, I can talk to any crowd. And
Well, in your business, being a banker, I mean, you're there again. I mean, I would never have got that, and I've known you some 10 years now.
Yeah. You would not have known that, and so that's why I answered that question that way. Because I'm okay. I'm okay with a small group of people, but I'm okay too with a large group of people that I never would have been without the Lord working through my life in Kern County Youth for Christ, or at that time it was Antelope Valley Youth for Christ, which is, I've been involved in Youth for Christ a long time, so it's multiple chapters, but the organization itself really brought a lot out in me that I really aspired to. The Lord worked through that.
I relate to that so much because like I've already shared, that was one of the things that I shared on here, is that I failed my English in junior and senior year because I would not go up and speak in front of the class. I would just take the F, and then God obviously shoves me into speaking, and still to this day you don't find me looking for conversation. I don't want to have a conversation, but I rather either speak to 400 people or not speak at all, because I'm not a communicator like that, but God has put me in a situation. I'd rather not just have small talk. I'd rather talk about something I'm very passionate about, or something very serious, like literally cutting, suicide, things like that. I can talk about that, but if you just want to have small talk, I can't even waste time with a conversation because I'm too uncomfortable, and it's still like that to this day. So I fully feel you on that, and people being shocked that I'm not a talker.
Well, you know, because that surprises me too, Justin, because you do a great job when you speak from the pulpit and you speak to the kids. And so that day that I asked you to come and do that, it probably freaked you out, huh?
Oh my God!
I didn't realize. I was
God alone made me say yeah.
So Justin and I have that history, but when I talked to him about coming in and helping volunteer with the kids, I was probably a little bit of pressure. Well, I think we all have experienced that. I mean, a lot of you know my past. I could stand in front of a ESPN camera in basically a bikini brief, and pose and for the cameras, but if you wanted to ask me to say a few words, I was like, no way. So I mean, I had so then as I became more successful in my career as a bodybuilder, I had to start saying things.
Right.
So one of the things I did was I started pushing myself towards conversation, which led to some speech classes and things like that. So
cool.
Sometimes I love that, Kurt. So there again, we've told our audience before, sometimes you have to push towards those fears. Pastor Ron said it in a sermon a few Sundays ago. Sometimes you have to run towards the roar. You can't you can't always turn your back and walk away from or be afraid of the roar. You have to run to the roar. So I like that.
So let's get into your story. I think we can start even at Youth for Christ. It was such a big deal in your life. Explain how it impacted you. What is Youth for Christ? Because I don't quite know exactly what you mean when you say Youth for Christ. So give us the rundown.
All right. Youth for Christ is a parachurch organization. Been around since, I believe, the late 1940s. I think it was 1948. Their first full-time employee was none other than Dr. Billy Graham.
Really?
Yes.
Yes,
that's where he started. He was in youth ministry with Youth for Christ.
Okay, see.
So that's how it all started. And I got involved in Youth for Christ, which basically at that time worked primarily with high school students.
Okay.
And they would have, back in those days, the old days, the 50s and the 60s, they had big rallies. And the rallies over a period of time turned into more of a home setting. And so kids would open up their homes, kids and parents would open up their homes, and we would have meetings in the homes. So that was like in the late 60s, early 70s that happened. He still had some of the rallies, but he more went to the smaller unit instead of large rallies. And so when I got involved is actually when I was a senior in high school, 1972, 73, and I started going to some of the meetings. I had just met Christ when I was a junior in high school.
What a blessing.
Yeah, and And so when I met Christ, I naturally heard about Youth for Christ, and I started going to some of the club meetings. And I think what they were doing is sizing me up, thinking, okay, this is fresh meat in order to do ministry whenever he gets out of high school.
Some churches do that.
Yes, and that's what happened.
Into the grinder.
Yeah. So we would do some pretty crazy stuff.
That's you then, right?
That's me.
Right.
Yeah, it was the Great Swami, and we had a lot of fun with that costume. It's a costume my mom made. Not for that, but she made it, and I thought, hey, we can use that at Campus Life, and so I became a Swami. We did something like they did with, on that last picture, turn it back to that last picture. Down there on the right is my wife, supporting me by my side at all of this, because right here, she's the one with the flippy up in 1980s hairdo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it's
anyway.
a good woman to support you in that outfit, friend.
Yeah,
you can rock an outfit like that.
I have had to before.
Yeah, you have.
I know your struggle.
So anyway, so we did the ministry together. It was something that was a husband and wife thing. Pies and Faces, that's me on the left, and Jill is on the right, and then we had one of our staff members put a pie right in the face of one of the students. That was just great. Back in those days, we had a little electric chair.
You could get away with that stuff
You
back
could.
then.
We even had an electric chair. We had
shock
wired.
people?
We'd shock people.
Oh,
They'd sit in
boy.
this little chair, and we'd zap them. And
You would get a
can't do
parent
that
email on
anymore.
that
Hey,
one.
Pastor Ron, I'm gonna do that next week. I'll see what happens.
Those were some really great days. We had just
The old days.
tons of kids. We go to camps. All these pictures are camp or club meetings at people's homes. It was just
It impacted your life.
It impacted my life, my wife's life, my kids' lives. They couldn't wait to be old enough to be a part of our Campus Life meetings. And speaking of family, this is
There's your
this is a
family.
picture of all of us at Pismo standing in front of Splash Cafe, which actually I think it would be a good place to be at right now. What do you think?
Yes.
Well, it's going to be a lot cooler,
Yes.
and you can get clam chowder.
Yes, that's true. You have to stand in line. But
you do.
aside from that, it's really good.
You guys made a line just with the family.
Yeah.
How many grandkids?
We have 6 grandkids,
Ooh.
3 children. They're not children anymore. They're old children.
You said something I think is very important, that your kids kind of followed suit. I know we had Colleen McCann here at church a couple weeks ago, and Colleen McCann, if you're out there, Colleen, thank you. She was a VBS crew leader, and both my daughter Taylor and Tessa were in her crew, but she inspired them to be crew leaders. So both Taylor and Tessa went on to be crew leaders.
That's awesome.
And they had kids in their lives. So I think it's a very a notable trait when the kids want to follow in something like that, because
that's what I'm hoping for my kids.
Yeah, and it'll happen. Just
Well, and it doesn't happen to all parents, and I know a lot of good God-fearing parents who have had kids and
Had to go astray.
They had kids like you.
Yeah, I was that kid.
Yeah, that's right.
I was 100%
But look at you
that
today.
kid.
I mean,
Praise
so,
the Lord.
and that's kind of how things work. And you just need to have your trust in the Lord and continue to love them through it.
Yeah.
Just love them, because at the end of the day, God is love.
He is.
Amen.
And so just love your kids and support them as best you can. And you may not agree with everything that they're going through, but just love them through it.
That's one thing I love about my story. If God forbid one of my kids have to go and test the world, I can say like, hey, I've been there, and you can come back from
Yes.
it. And a lot of us Christians sometimes get too legalistic and don't let people live life and find out for themselves that God is good and you need Him. So that's beautiful. I thank you for saying that. Some parents need to hear that sometimes.
They do.
I know godly men. We were at a discipleship meeting. There's a godly dude who was. You could see how down he was
Yes.
because his kid. He's like, all my kids are not really following the Lord right now, and he took it personal. Like, what did I do wrong? And sometimes it's not you. I don't
not.
think it's you. I
Absolutely.
think they have a life path that they have to take.
There's something called free will.
Yes.
And you know
when
what? We had it too.
We did. Well, the crazy thing about me is I didn't know Christ at all. Then I was 34. Kurt's an amazing banker.
Yes, I want to get into that.
Well, I could tell you that because he's our church's banker. And when he came to be our church's banker, I remember the first time you called me and introduced yourself, and you said you were from Citizens. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Remember that call, Kurt?
Oh, yeah.
Because we hadn't had a good experience
Okay.
with that. I mean, if Pastor Ron was here, I mean, it was one where actually Pastor Ron went to your the predecessor, and put the keys to our church building on his desk and says, "You can have the building back."
True story, everybody.
Ooh.
True story. So when
Before
Kirk,
me.
Yes. So when Kirk goes, "Tom, can you help set up a meeting, with Pastor Ron's? I want to kind of heal this relationship." I go, "That's going to be a hard road." And I can tell you, Kurt, kudos to you. You did it. Not only did you do that, you took us to that next level, and you're our business banker to this day, and you've done an amazing job. As I was telling the president of your bank one day, that the fact that you came in and you turned things around for us, and then you helped us refinance our campus in a really difficult time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something our church family, I've shared that story several times.
Sure.
But it was your banking skill, but it was also your relational skills. And then it was the fact that you knew Christ as our banker. I mean, it was all those things intricately.
And one of the interesting questions that I found with most people on the show is the mixing in your world, in the banking world. How do you use the things you've learned from Christ? How do you use the characteristics of Christ to help you in your business world? Where does Christ show up in there? I know you can't just go around banks preaching to people, so obviously it shows up in other ways.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to go back to the first three Gospels, and Jesus said, "Love."
Mm-hmm.
He wants us to love Him, and He wants us to love others. Mm-hmm. And I believe that is what we need to do, and I need to do that wherever I'm at. So for some reason, I don't know why, but I can't quote the scripture. Normally I can, because that's one of my favorite scriptures, but I think I have camera shock. I don't know what it is, but
he's filling the cameras.
Yeah, but love God, love people at the end of the day, and so I try to do that at work. I try to do that with staff. I try to do that with clients, and my hope is that they'll see Christ by the way that I act, the things that I say. I look him in the eye. I try to be truthful, never lie.
You were that with us.
Lie.
You told us the mountain that Valley Bible was having to climb up to turn this thing around. You did. But you were there every step of the way.
Well, there was a way to do it. There was a way to do it, and we had to work together.
Yes, we did.
The church and the bank had to work together in
and
order
Pastor
to make
Ron,
it happen.
Yeah, it was. I'll never forget, Kurt. Do you remember the day you called me and you asked, "Do you guys have a fundraising idea?" And I said, "We do." And I go, Pastor Ron just announced it at the church. And you're like, "What is it, Tom?" I'm kind of excited to hear about it. I go, I go, "It's a white golf ball and a yellow golf ball." Do you remember that story?
Yes, so I do.
Because I shared it with him. I go, we're gonna have people buy some white and yellow golf balls as a fundraiser, and we're gonna put them in a bucket, and we're gonna show people, kind of a visual reference. And I had to go, "Kurt, you're on the line, Kurt?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm there." And then it was amazing what God did with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember the final day that Mike Maggard and I and Pastor Ron were there in your office, and we were there to, sign the new deal. And it's just what God did with the white and the yellow golf balls, the vision that God gave Ron to help do that as kind of a catalyst.
Yeah, crazy how people responded and it worked, because when you hear, what are you going to do to save the church? Oh, we're going to get some golf balls.
And that was a major piece, because
it was.
The church was all in. You had to be all in.
Yes.
But the other thing too is that the church had some assets that were just sitting there, and what we did is we put them to work.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So whether it was to sell a piece of property or to use a piece of property as additional collateral, at the end of the day, we made it past the problem. And the problem wasn't your fault. It was the economy, and the economy tanked, and the value of the building was less than it should have been because the appraisals dropped.
Yeah.
And now, anyway, so. But we made it past that, and right now I believe the church is doing pretty good.
Yeah.
God's been good. But the biggest thing that I can say for Kurt is when he met with Pastor Ron, one of the first things he was just real humble. Said, "You've had a bad experience, but I'm here to change that."
Yeah,
that's what Kurt said. He goes, "I'm here to change that."
The other end of it, because now the elders openly talk to us about this, but back when this was happening, it was just, "Hey, we're gonna pray. We got refinances needs to happen. Let's keep praying. We got faith. God's with us. We're good." And then later on, you find out, there
was a lot of moving pieces
that needed to happen. But I love seeing the faith of our leaders, because they just constantly to know the chaos they were really going through and how they were dealing with it, and just going, we're confident that God's going to show up. We don't know how, but we're very confident he's going to show up. And now, as we've grown in the ministry, I've seen that time and time again, where there's situations that are actually crazy, but we have zero panic. And like, if you didn't have Christ, a lot of these church situations would be complete chaos. Well, I couldn't even imagine it.
One of the things I always do is give credit to Pastor Ron.
Yeah.
Because Pastor Ron has been in the ministry so long. I tell leaders and I tell other pastors, and Pastor Ron I talked about the other day, I think he's probably the elder in town. He's been in ministry almost 48 years, same church, which you just don't hear of anymore. Somebody staying in a church they founded 48 years ago. But if any church has been through something more than us, I don't know which one.
Yeah.
But I tell new pastors, if you talk to Pastor Ron, he's probably been through this 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's like when I was able to give you wisdom, Pastor Ron used to give me wisdom and still does.
Yeah.
I go to him the beauty of what I do is I remember Pastor Ron helped me with my first Bible study, and last Wednesday when I spoke, he helped me with my speaking then too. I always go to him and go, this is my ideas, what do you think? Because why wouldn't I?
Yeah. So good.
48 years experience.
Yes.
I if I didn't go to him, he's right there next to me.
Yeah.
So I tell people that, I go, you got to go find that wealth of knowledge that's around you. And we were blessed to have Kirk in our life.
I just want to share something when you say wealth of knowledge. And that is, my wife and I got married really young. I was 20, she was 19.
Ooh.
Yeah, and my mom was so mad, and I don't blame her.
I'm sure.
I had the greatest woman in the world, but it was really early. But we were married 47 years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Yeah, but the point is that when we were young, new Christians and newly married, we did not have any way, shape, or form any understanding as to how to be godly parents. We didn't have kids then, but we wanted to be godly husband and wife to one another, and a godly parent whenever we had kids. And so I was transferred. I was with B of A, was with them for 5 years, and they transferred us to the Palm Springs area. And we were in this little town called Yucca Valley, great little place. And we met a couple named Bill and Peggy Warren. They're with the Lord today. And they didn't know it, but they were our mentors as to how to be a godly husband, and how to be a godly wife, and how to be godly with your kids and raise them up in the way of the Lord. And we emulated our lives by the way that they treated their children and the way that they loved each other. And that was such a blessing to us that we had them. And like I say, they're with the Lord now, but their hearts are still with us. That's why I had to share their names, because that was huge for us.
I agree. And I've always told people, of course, fitness is a direction I always go back to. When people come to me, and I give people advice, I don't really do it just I've never done it for money or anything like that. But I always tell somebody, find somebody that you want to look like. If you're going to start exercising, go to the person that you like, I like to look like that.
Yeah.
So you found a couple that you said, this is what my marriage wants to be like. I tell young people, find those mentors in your life that, and I've always said this, and somebody brought it up to me the other day, so I'll say it again. When you're raising up teenagers, you got to make sure that the right people in their life, because the volume of your voice goes down. The volume of somebody else's voice goes up. Whose is it going to be?
Yeah.
And help them find the right people to be there. And I think that's what's great about churches, especially when you can have J2 in middle school person's life, and Gennaro or Tom Hollenbeck or, Stormy August, those are the people that you want to say, hey, trust them.
Yeah, Tom's he's my and Tom Hollenbeck's like parent, he's who we look to as a parent, along with Pastor Ron as well. But we go to him because his daughters turned out so well, right? They turned out so successful, so polite, always stayed in ministry. It's awesome. So I remember my parent, I have a plan, and you don't have to share this. I don't even know if they know. I think it was Taylor. Who's the one that ran away? and you.
Oh, was
was it? Which one was it?
She's here, and
it was Taylor, right?
Yeah.
So he has you don't have to share, but he has a story of how he dealt with a time when she got a little bold, and I am holding on to that. If my kids ever try me, I learned it, and I'm gonna keep it. You can share at your will, but I just know I will never forget about that story.
There you go.
It is. Well, one of the things I'd like you to share, Kurt, is I know that you have a love for music, and I think it's amazing the things that you've done, and just tell them about that.
Well, just like whenever I learned to play the guitar, it was about 35 years ago, and I was sitting in my house, and all of a sudden, I just was inspired to play the guitar. And I don't know why, it just happened. And, well, I do know why. The Lord put that in me so I could worship Him. And so
those gifts, God
I picked up the
gifts.
guitar and just started learning. I called my brother up, told him that, and he said, "You know what? I have a guitar here.
That's
you can
crazy.
borrow it as long as you want. If you decide that you want to still play the guitar, buy your own guitar and give me my guitar back. If you decide that you don't want to learn to play the guitar, you haven't invested any money, and then give me my guitar back." So I did give him his guitar back, but I bought my own little guitar at a pawn shop and learned how to play. And over the years, I've been able to help out in worship a bit, and that has grown into, well, I made a guitar. So this is the little Texas
License plate
guitar box electric guitar that I put together in my garage, and it was quite a task. It took me hours and hours and hours to do, but it plays. The electronics work. They didn't at first, but we got them to work. Everything is just like it's supposed to be. I do have a brother-in-law who is really good with making guitars and plays guitar quite a bit. So he gave me some tips of some things I needed to do, but I didn't want to buy a kit. I just wanted to make it out of scratch. And so I got to tell you, in 2019, I entered that in the Kern County Fair. Got best of show and got like 5 blue ribbons on it. So
what?
it was just neat. I wished I had taken that picture and showed you, but it was something that I just desired to do, and I was able to do it and made it work. And that was, to me, that was the Lord just giving me that inspiration.
Creativity.
You know, it is creative. It's like Justin writing poems.
Yep.
I know your wife works in wood. I mean, that right there. I mean, this stuff, because there again, I wouldn't even undertake something like that. But there again, there's a lot of things people can do. My wife's going to come on the show one day and talk about what she's been doing. My wife has got my wife and her friend Kelsey started like 3 businesses during the pandemic. And they've been having fun
Smart
with it.
moves.
Yeah, they've been having fun doing that. So I like it. Anything else you want to leave our audience with, Kirk? I mean, you're an accomplished man and got a lot going on. Anything you want to leave? I mean, any mottos, any mentors? I know you talked about the couple in Yucca Valley that was able to help mentor you with your marriage. Anything else that you want to leave the audience with?
Well, I would just say that that my real focus is just really to love people, and that there's always mentors that we can learn from, even at our ages.
You never quit. You're never too old to learn.
We have a couple in our church, and Don and Diane Shilley, and just a wonderful couple. And they've been married over 60 years. I tell them, every year I tell them, I say, Don, Jill and I have been married 47 years now. That's what I told him last time, and he said, that's a nice start.
I love that.
I think they've been married 65 years, but every time I see them, they're holding hands.
Oh, I love that.
It is a beautiful thing, and Jill and I, we hold our hands, just like that, and we want to emulate them because that's good
cool
stuff.
Yeah.
People can learn a lot about watching somebody else, people who are well-centered in Christ, to be able to emulate in your life. It can be done. And we need to think of others not as important, but even more important than ourselves, especially our spouses.
The Bible says, since we have a great cloud of witnesses, we should go forward in faith. And I think that verse you might have been looking for was to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love others as yourself.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There
Got tongue-tied there a bit.
Yeah, that's okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, Kurt, I love having you on.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you,
was
my
nice
friend.
brother.
having you.
Thank
Good
you,
to
my
know you're a
friend.
clear man of God, man. I love it.
Yeah.
I love meeting
All right.
all the different men and women
Yeah.
of God in different fields of work. So
Yeah.
I'm loving seeing this. It's been cool.
Well, next week, our guest is going to be E.J. Callahan, Vice President out at Cal State University.
Ooh.
And I had the honor of doing EJ and Emily's wedding, and so I'm looking forward to EJ being on the show. So got a lot to say. Kurt, thank you for being the man you are,
Thank you,
the
brother.
banker you are, and the believer in Christ you are. So if you guys have any questions, let us know, because we'll answer them next week. Pastor Tom at vbf.org.
Jay Greer, vbf.org, and this was Lunch Break. Thanks for watching.